Thank you very much, and thanks for your invitation. And hello, everyone. This is my first online lecture, which is really hard for me because I really want to interact with the people, and now I'm interactive just with a screen. So the lecture will be the structure of a context. For all of the graduate architects, after the graduation, the goal is joining the architectural firms in capital of architecture like London and New York, and joining to the big office firms where an architect or the huge and big firm of architecture in London, New York, Beijing, Shanghai, Dubai. And this is very normal that an architect from London make a decision for a village in China. But they do very good buildings, but the problem is normally it doesn't have a very good relation with the context around. And it was my question all the time, because Iran is a big country, and this is and we have different climates, different geography, and different cultures. Is there any specific formula or methodology to work in different climates in Iran? This is my methodology of design. This is a triangle. Each corner is a technique, material, and geometry. I call this responsive triangle. It means that material has a character, and if I give you a piece of stone and say fold it, you cannot do that because the technique doesn't support it by the material, and you cannot fold the stone. Folding not supported by stone. Controlling the material limited by specific techniques, and at the end reaching a specific geometry and structure. Applying a specific technique to the specific material will guide the structure to a specific geometry. Actually, we can change the behavior of material through different technique, or on the other word, different techniques can give a material a different behavior. The techniques and tools need to be supported by the geography and nature. It's exactly like how the creatures make their houses. And it means that if I give you a saw in a desert, you cannot do anything with that. But if I give you that saw in a jungle, you can start cutting the material and make the structure. So the geography needs to support the technique and material. It means if we apply specific into a specific material, it will give us geometry and organization. So at the end, I can say that each geography, because of their specific material, has its and the context has its own organization. I can say the organization of a village and a colony in a jungle is different with the organization in desert. When you look at the material and when you look at the um, environment, you can find a specific material and you will figure out what kind of tools you need to control the material and what kind of technique you need to change it and make the geography habitable. So how is the design process? In this design process, you need to touch the material. The computer doesn't work actually, and you need to touch the material and have an experience of the material physically by your hand. This is 25 centimeter, the only data that we can get from the computer, but in the real world, it can be made of steel, wood, or plastic. It means that with 3 different techniques, 3 different organization, 3 different geometry. The computers are interesting, but they shouldn't be a kind of tool, this connector between you and the material. You need to extract data from the computer, from the material, real material, and then put the data into the computer. We need to touch the material and extract the data from the material to design the structure. This is not going to happen in the computer. So when we want to improve our design process, we need to talk about the design process. We need to evaluate the design process. It means that the evaluation of food in a village in Africa is, and the value of food in a village in Africa is completely different with the Buckingham Palace. So somewhere is about the quality and somewhere is about the quantity. So we need to evaluate each structure and each structural system by its own context. Sometimes when we want to talk about the structure, we say, okay, this is beautiful. I would say we cannot trust the visual proportions to evaluate the structure because the meaning of beautiful is different via time, by the time, and geography. The parameter that you can trust is the performance of a structure. The performance of a structure is a factor which guides us to control and evaluate the and you can figure out the rules between each components and joints, and then you can fix the bugs. In Iran, this is my hometown, Tehran, the capital city of Iran. We don't have a high-rise culture. It means that we are not tower designers. Because we have villas culture, we have gardens culture. And this is a question, that the difference between the tower and a villa is touchable. You can go around the villa and touch the material. You can look behind the window, inside the building, and touch the building by itself. And the only people who has the experience of a facade of a tower are the people who are cleaning the tower first time a year. I can say that the definition of a house is completely changed when you live apart. and the meaning of a house completely. Here is a piece of Tehran with a garden fabric residential. It doesn't have orientation and direction. It's right now, because of the business, it's transformed all of the villas to the towers. We had a project over here, and all of the towers are cubic with 4 direction. But because of the context and surrounding fabric, residential fabric, we thought that what we propose shouldn't have the direction. So that's why we use the cylinder shape as a strategy. This is the density of the residential we wanted. So we pixelated to the units, and we let the void space go through the units to organize by the void spaces. And we make the height habitable by some decks, which doesn't have a direction. And actually, we had neighborhoods for each floors. And at the end, I can say this project is a growth of the residential fabric around, the growth of the context around. In a bottom-up design structure structure with the rules, the relationship and the rules are really important between every single units and the interaction between the units. It means that if you take a piece of that structure out, it will work separately, like the whole structure. So the rules between the units make this tower as the growth of context residential pattern. Also, we can have a quality of a villa in height. Every corner and every facade are touchable from outside. This is exactly what I explained in the beginning. We have the source of that ceremony and religious activities are in ground floor. Sometimes we generate a space for the event and the people interaction. And now the question is, can we organize architecture and a structure with that events? Or they have enough potential to organize the structures? I believe that the architecture shouldn't be more bold and over than the events. The events can, in the urban space, is in advance and can organize the building. We have a city in the middle of desert, a home. It has super block with different character. They give their character by their own activities and different activities. Here we had a huge site in the middle of the city, and each super block has different character and events. So the slides, I guess, yeah. They have different characters because of the different events in the different part of the city. So in the beginning, we thought that this is our site. But in forward, we thought that now the whole super block is the site. And we need to organize the whole super block by the project. Previously, the site was like this. And they eliminate the houses to make a huge site. And they want to build a huge program in it. As a design strategy, we want to tie the residential fabric again to make a space for that events, that religious events, which is fluid between the houses and in an urban space. So we thought that we can make a huge structure and program by the small cells of a site. So we decided to regenerate the site structure, the structural fabric, by its own cell and by its own scale. With this strategy, we had the ground floor open to the city, and here is the central courtyard for the religious activities in the middle of a kind of shopping mall, which is completely normal in that kind of city. The spaces are transformed for that religious activities in that city. It has a central courtyard organization to breathe. And the first 3 floors are perforated to make the project breathe. We had another challenges here in one of our projects that between the private and public building, which is defined by the walls as an architectural element. We thought that, is it possible to make that border a bit thicker and define it by people activities and people presence? The strategy, all of the buildings are the same strategy. We had the commercial in the ground floor and office building and roof. So we thought that how we can connect the second floor to the ground floor to the city directly without the stairs. So we redefine the architecture element as a wall. We transform the wall to the element which connect us from the ground floor to the second floor, to the first floor. With this strategy, we connect the first floor directly to the city. So the structure, so the construction started, and we fired in this stage because we thought that the drawing and the language of architecture didn't work in this stage between us and the constructor. So we thought we need to change and have a better illustration and presentation. So this model brought us back and make us higher again. So the physical models became a kind of a language and documents for construction. We make the 1-to-1 mock-ups and 1-to-10 physical models to convince the client. And in this stage, the client and constructors be familiar with our physical models. They didn't have any idea about the renders. The client put his head into the physical model and then let us to build it. So I'm a swimmer, and I feel the water with my whole body. It means that my body is educated by water. And I can say there is a very big difference between a pool and sea. In a pool, you need to have standard activities and standard behavior to be survive and to be on top of the water. But in a sea, it's completely different. You need to respond to the water. You need to get the data from the water and react. So this is two different. I mean, I can say that the standard of the swimming is a standard activities, but swimming in the sea is not a standard. It's completely different. I cannot say that this is a stairs because they are not standards. Your body needs to be familiar with these elements. I can say that this is an architectural elements which lift you up to the first floor. This is a very normal question and request in Iran that, is it possible to design our facade? They go and build something and the structure exists and they ask you to design a facade for it. When we design a facade for a building, it means we'll kill the performance and hide the character of a structure. And if you design a very good shape and with a very good graphic, it means that it's like designing a best suit for a bird. This is one of the structure that we face in Tabriz. The client asked us to design a facade for it with a ridiculous plan. And we say, okay, the facade is for the city and people outside of the building. So you need to live into the building. What we can give to you and how we can redefine your life, how we can inject life. So we decide to go for plans and with a bottom-up design methodology, we educate the client to design a section of a building. All the time here, we need to educate the client, and the education here for that client is now, yeah, he say, would you please design a section for me? Iran has a very interesting road which connects different cultures and geographies. And when you, at the end of each road, you will meet a specific culture and very unique people. And this is our historical road. In north part of Iran, supposed to be this kind of architecture in a specific geography and climate. But the client vision was this. They asked us to design a facade for us. They said, okay, this is okay for us, but we need to just a little bit change it. As I said, they already had the structure exist, but they just needed to have a beautiful facade for it. When we analyze the structure was and right now is normal. It's a domino from Le Corbusier. So, but the DNA of this structure should be different in middle of Iran and in north part of Iran. This structure can be changed in the jungle or in the desert. We had, in the parentheses, we had another experience in Isfahan, a city in the middle of Iran. It was a competition. We won this competition. They had another structure exist, and they told us, would you please design a facade for us? So we change, we make a depth to the facade, and we make it from the 30 centimeter to 60 meter, and we regenerate and bring the structure back to life. It was like 3 floors, retail, and at the top it was the food court. We start to programming the project. This is a diagram of the food court for the shopping malls. I hate food court. They want the people to push the people up for food. As I said, I hate the food court because it doesn't matter if you buy a coffee or have a pizza or kebab. All of the smells are combined, and it doesn't matter what you eat. We change the organization of the food court and bring it in front of the building to reorganize that structure. Each brand and each has its own space with a special character. It's exactly like Isfahan Bazaar. The organization is like Isfahan Bazaar. Isfahan Bazaar is like a tunnel by itself, which get the character by the people activities and the goods and what you sell. So it was the structure, and we use to expand the DNA of that structure, and we repeat that cell to make organize our new structure. So go back to the structure we had in north part of Iran. It was the client vision, as I said, but we a little bit changed it, and we had the same strategy, but different technique and different geometry. In the previous one, we used the cell, and in this one, we activated the slabs. So we can say one material, one material. And then geometry.
Farshad, please try.
Yes?
Please try to finish.
Okay, 2 minutes will be fine. So here is the basement, and we make the retails like an island, and we make a field of plaza in front of the building, This is actually, we make the facade habitable and expand it to the roof of the building to organize the whole building. Actually, I can say we changed the section of the building, the section of the structure, to make it more related to the geography. And we added a steel structure on top of a concrete structure. It's under construction now, and I hope the opening will be in like 6 months. The orientation of a body is important. We need to follow, and the orientation of a body is important, but it doesn't have any meaning without a context. Sometimes you think that this guy is praying, but when you add the background and the context into it, the result will be something else. So for me, this two structure, it wasn't any difference for me. The technique were the same. The typology are the same, but when we add the context to the first one, the geometry completely changed. The first one is in the Isfahan, in the middle of desert, and the second one is in north, near the jungle. Thank you very much. I'm done.
Farshad, for this very impressive and interesting presentation. So what I'm holding from this presentation is the responsive triangle, and the most important thing is contextualism, to design incorporating the context.
Thank you.
So we move on to the next. Thank you very much for your presentation.
It's okay.
So we have to move on